Mike, it's on. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, one thing Jack didn't tell you, we were recruiting Mickey Joseph down in New Orleans, and there was a rule that I could only go to the school so many times, and I'd been there so that number of times, and Mickey wanted me to come down and sign him. So what we did, the school had a fence, the fence line of the property. So we had a table, and Jack and I sat on one side of the fence. They took the fence down, and Mickey sat on the other side of the fence line, and so we were there to sign him.
Finish on 1 second.
Yep.
1 second. All right, short segment here. We'll with Coach Osborne. As we've got our first hour in the book, stay with us. Coach is going to stay an additional 30 minutes here, live from the Champions Club. Thanks for stopping by. All right, sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
No, I was done. But that just shows you how ridiculous some of the rules are. You know that we had to actually take the fence down, and he sat on one side of the fence line, I sat on the other, and Jack, and we signed him. And you know, Mickey was a good player. He wasn't very big, and we really had a catastrophe at the end of the 1991 season. He got run into a bench down at Oklahoma. For some reason, they had a steel bench on the sideline. It wasn't wooden. And he had, I think it was about 55 stitches. His whole leg was just laid open. And so he was done. And then we ended up with about 4 turnovers on the backup quarterback, and they beat us pretty bad. Then we went down and played Georgia Tech, and they were undefeated, and they were playing for a chance at the national championship. So they had momentum, and they were rolling, and we had backup quarterbacks. And so we got beat fairly bad those 2 games. And you talk about going back to the drawing board. You know, I mentioned the 68 game. Well, that's what happened in 91 as well. We kind of started back and reevaluated everything. We brought in Jack Stark and started the Unity Council, and we changed a whole bunch of stuff, changed our defense, did some things different on offense. And that kind of launched us into a pretty good run of 5 years where we only lost 3 games during that period of time. So that's why I said what I said about this game back in Indianapolis can serve you well sometimes. It depends on how you react to it, you know. But if you look at it proactively and make the changes that you need to make, it can serve as a springboard to some pretty good things.
We got a few minutes here, about 5 minutes until our next hour starts and our final segment with Coach begins. If you have questions, go ahead and fire them up. Start over here.
Coach, what did Warren Sapp say to you when you came down there at National? Everybody on TV saw power, and you just kind of smiled at him. Did you elaborate?
Well, Warren was breathing so hard that I couldn't understand what he was saying. I remember his eyes were real big, and but he was a very good player. But we tried to use that aggressiveness against him, and that you know, we scored a couple times with Corey Schlesinger, and one of those was a trap play, and I called the trap, and I told the guards that head bob. So Warren was lined up on the guard, and normally the guard would bob his head and then go inside for the backer. Well, the guy did a head bob, and Warren was so quick and so good. He read the guy's head. He just flew to the outside and up the field. And our trapper came around, was supposed to trap Warren, and Warren was so far up the field, he didn't have to trap him. He just went up like the next guy, and that's how Corey had a free lane to the end zone. And as the game went along, he did get fatigued, and he wasn't playing near as well. But he was, you know, he played, I don't know, 12, 13 years in the NFL and was a very good player. Something that people don't realize that they had a linebacker there named Ray Lewis on that same team. So they had a lot of really good players. And then the 2 or 3 years later, we played 97, we played Tennessee. And I think they had 5 or 6 first-rounders on their team. And so some of those teams that we played late in the 90s were pretty talented teams. Here he comes.
Paul, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Think back to might be back to 84. What's your thoughts? What were you thinking?
Well, people have asked me that, and the truth is I wasn't thinking. I was only thinking what will work, you know. And but I was a voter on the coaches poll, and I know my own mindset, and that would be that I would not vote for a team for number one if they played for a tie. I just didn't think you did that, and so I didn't even see it as an option. And we felt that we'd studied them very carefully. We knew that any 2-point situation or any goal line play where you needed 3 yards in one play, it was going to be man-to-man coverage. And so we thought we had a play that would work very well. We took the eye back and moved him up into a halfback spot, and then we took the wing back and the split end on that side, and we ran him across and ran the eye back to the flat. And that meant the linebacker had to cover the eye back to the flat. And Turner Gill, of course, was a very accurate thrower. And he rolled out. It was probably a 10-yard throw. And but the guy covering Irving Fryer, slanting in, saw what was happening. He came off of Irving, dove for the ball, and Turner threw it just a little bit behind. You know, if it was here, it's no problem. But it was a little bit back on his shoulder pad, and the guy got a finger on it. And that was the difference between a national championship or a nice try. And so anyway, that's the way it goes. But I knew those players would probably never believe that we couldn't have gotten the 2-point play. And so we did it. We didn't make it. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I really wasn't thinking. It wasn't like I was debating, kick the point, don't kick the point. People thought I was agonizing. It wasn't. I just was trying to figure out how do we win the game. And and I thought we had a play that was probably 4 out of 5 times it's going to work. And it just didn't work. That was the 5th time. So anyway. Yes, sir.
Who's one of the toughest players you ever played against on either side of the ball that caused you worry or how are you going to play against them?
Me personally, or my teams? Oh, I suppose that I played Oklahoma with the Selmans. You know, they were pretty tough. The Selman brothers, they had 2 or 3 of them in that defensive line. They had Rod Schote at linebacker and Randy Hughes at safety and Kenny Anderson at corner. I still remember those guys. And they were very, very good. And so those were probably the toughest people we had to play against. We played against a lot of really good players, but I'd say in combination, those Selmans were really tough.
Tonight is the final regular TO show. With Athletic Director Tom Osborne. Sponsored by T.O. Haas Tire and Auto, a tradition of trust since 1947. Here's your host, Jeff Culhane.
Hey, welcome to our final hour, our final segment here tonight, live from the Champions Club in Lincoln with Nebraska Athletic Director Tom Osborne. I'm Jeff Culhane. Our show tonight made possible by T.O. Haas Tire and Auto, a tradition of trust since 1947. And we've had some fun tonight, have we not? It's been pretty good so far. Coach, I don't know how much fun you're having. You guys are getting after tonight a little bit.
It's a little brutal, but, you know, that's what you expect when you come to a deal like this. I saw him out there. I knew what was going to happen. And now we're getting into the really fast talkers at the end here.
And now we're getting into the really fast talkers.
And it isn't going to get any easier.
we saved the roughest for last here in your final segment, and we're joined now by former Husker national champion, Tecumseh native, and our color analyst Matt Davison. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Jeff, thank you. Great to be here. I have a microphone in front of me a lot, and maybe some people are tired of hearing me about this time of the year. So I've told nearly every story I could possibly tell about Coach Osborne, but I may have one left.
I thought you had one in the back pocket. You said last night during your weekly.
I might have one more.
Might have one more in the back pocket.
I might have one more. Well, I'll lead by this. Coming from Tecumseh, Nebraska, and when I was, finishing my junior year of high school, that was the fall of '95. And so, Nebraska was pretty good that year. So I really didn't think I had a chance to come to Nebraska on a scholarship for sure. But Coach came down and watched me play basketball when I was a senior. And, it was a little bit embarrassing when he got down there, and I was 168 pounds. He thought they were recruiting me to be a punter and not a wide receiver. So that was a little bit shocking. But the next year, so I get on campus in the spring of '97 in May. And so I'm just trying to find a way to get onto the field, right? And a lot of people, were surprised by Coach's retirement in '97, and maybe this story will shed some light on it. But so it's like maybe week, 5 or 6, something like this during the season, and I had pulled my quad. And what reminded me of this story was I was talking with Doak earlier about this last week, and what happened was I had a pulled quad. And what would happen is on Monday mornings, you'd go in and have treatment. Yep. And then the trainers would then meet with the coaches and tell the coaches what was wrong with each guy, if there were any injuries. And I had the pulled quad, but I knew to get on the field, I had to practice because I was just barely, getting on the field at that point. So I thought, I better practice today. So Doak said, get out there and do what you can do. I'll tell Coach, that you're not 100% and that you're just going to be able to, do as much as you can today. So I said, okay, and so I get out to practice that day, and again, I'd been on campus 4 or 5 months, and I'm just trying to fit in, and people on the team don't even know my name at this point. And so I'm with the number 1 offense, and we have a pass play called, and I'm on the back side of the pass play, and the front side was supposed to run like a post or a go route. It was something deep down the field. I was on the back side and shouldn't have had to run much of a route. Well, Scott Frost went opposite, and so now the play is I'm play side, and now I have to run the post or the go, whatever it was. And with the pulled quad, I couldn't really accelerate. And so I head down the field, and Scott throws the ball, and it was an awful route, and the guy's all over me. And I come walking back to the huddle, and here's, Tom Osborne, this guy I've looked up to my whole life, and I'm just trying to make it on the team. And I walk back into the huddle, and here's Scott Frost and Aaron Taylor and Amon Green and Joel Makovicka and all these stars, and I'm standing there. Coach comes walking in the huddle, and he says, Matt, if you want to play on Saturday, then we're going to have to get a better effort out of you than that. Everyone else is giving a great effort. Why aren't you giving a great effort? And I felt like I was, so tiny at that point. But the first person I want to talk to is Doak, because I'm thinking Doak obviously didn't tell Coach that I'm not 100%. So I turn around feeling, this big, and I walk over to Doak and I said, Doak, didn't you tell Coach I'm not 100%? I can't run that route today. And he said, oh, no, I told him this morning. He said he must have forgot, kind of like his shoes over there. And we look over, and Coach had on different shoes on the field. And I know you remember this, but there were times he would come out to practice in 1997, and he'd have different shoes on at practice.
Yeah.
You remember.
Well, and so where are you going with this? The thing about it, at least I had clothing on. And the thing that Matt didn't tell you is that even if he was 100% well, he still didn't have any speed on the post pattern. And secondly, Doak would not get you well. He would only prolong your injury. And so the reason Matt was having trouble for all those weeks was because of the trainer we had at that time. Fortunately, he recovered in time for the Missouri game. And you've seen guys who've had great careers who played 10 years and they become broadcasters and they become famous. This guy did it with one play. One play in his lifetime. And now he's famous. It's amazing how this worked.
You did okay on that play, though, too.
It helped me, yeah. It helped me. Yeah.
You've seen his posters, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness! Has everyone seen the Everyone's seen the Matt Davison posters.
We actually
some have two of them.
We got Coach a poster signed by me and Scott Frost for Christmas. It must have been 5 years ago or so. Your daughter Suzanne wrapped that baby up and gave it to you. I'm sure it's framed somewhere.
It brought tears to my eyes when I saw it. No, but Matt, all kidding aside, he was a very, very good receiver. And I did go down to Tecumseh and watch him play basketball. And the thing that struck me was that he shot all the time. Every time he got his hands on the ball, he shot it. And but he was a good all-around athlete. And of course, he played basketball here at the university. Not very many guys were able to play through a bowl game and then go out there and play on the team. Of course, we weren't very good in basketball at that time either.
They were pretty desperate.
Yeah, they were. But anyway, Matt's been a good friend, and I've appreciated all that he's done.
What do you, as Coach brought the Missouri game, and folks obviously applauded and fired up about that one. What do you, besides the catch, take me back through that game, just the whole day.
I don't remember much about it except the last series. I really don't. But that's what people. If everybody remembers that one play, but that was one of the better football games you'll ever see, start to finish. It was back and forth. The defense, for whatever reason, had a hard time that day, and typically if the offense was struggling, you'd see Jason Peter and Grant Wistrom come down to the offensive huddle and yell and scream a little bit for us to pick it up. But for whatever reason that day, the offense had a pretty good day, and the defense struggled. And it was like I was living that dream that a kid has in Nebraska, really, because, to grow up a kid here in the state of Nebraska and watch the Nebraska teams and have great passion for the program as I did as a young guy, and then to, only be out of high school 6 months and to be thrown into a pressure-packed situation. I got to live in the moment with the guy that was always able to keep everybody calm. And you heard that all the time, when I was in high school or whatever. You'd hear Coach Osborne always kept everybody calm, never let the highs get too high or the lows get too low. And that was right at the time when you might have imagined that stress might have shown through. But, his ability to stay calm, I think, kept everybody else calm. And, it was the only time we ran that play all season long. We ran 99 double slant was the name of the play. We ran it once all season. Even though I was open all the time in the red zone, Coach always wanted to run it. And we ran that play once all season, and we didn't run it correctly, although I tell Scott Frost all the time, if he just would have thrown it to me to begin with, I wouldn't have had to come all the way across the field and save the day. He threw it to the wrong guy, and still we were able to pull it off.
Well, I remember that game quite well, and their Missouri quarterback was a guy named Corby Jones. We had tried to recruit Corby. Unfortunately, his father was on the staff at Missouri, which gave them a little bit of an edge. And so he was our kind of quarterback. And they actually put in a lot of our offense. They were running a G option, and then they ran the pass off of it, and they killed us with their own play. The combination of the G option and the pass. And we broke down pretty badly. And so the reason I was very calm at the end was I had given up. It looked pretty hopeless. I think we only had about 50 seconds, no timeouts, and we had to go about 60 yards. And actually, we should have gotten a call on Matt. We ran a comeback pattern, a deep out, and they were all over him, and we should have gotten an interference call right at the goal line. We didn't get it. And then we had to run that double slant, and Shevin missed it or bounced off of him, and then he kicked it, and then, of course, Matt got it. So we'd had some bad luck over the years, some plays that had gone against us, and I thought that night after that game, I thought, well, it all evened up tonight, because it did. And so I was very fortunate.
This is a heck of a call, is what it was.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was.
Final thoughts before I let you go for Coach?
Well, there's a lot of lasts, I guess, and so that's kind of tough, but I'm sure you're going to be around a bunch. We're going to ask you to come back on the radio.
Yeah, this won't be the last time.
We're going to ask you to do a whole bunch of things, so just expect all of those requests.
Yeah. These guys are really good at getting freebies. Anytime it's gratis, they'll invite you. So anyone here in this audience can get on this rodeo show. It's not hard to get on.
It's very true. If you want to send some steaks to the house for Christmas, that'd be okay.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Matt Davison stopping by. Former Husker, art color analyst, and national champion. Let's bring up another one of Coach's former guys who is stopping by here for a moment and chatting with us here at the main stage, and a guy that I've grown to know quite well over the last couple of years, former Husker quarterback, All-American, and Hall of Famer now, Steve Taylor, joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Give a round of applause. Taylor made Fresno, California to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Fresno to San Diego to
Fresno to San Diego to Lincoln.
yeah, that's even worse.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Coach. What do you think? It's going all downhill now, isn't it?
That's right. No, when I said the fast talkers were being saved for the end, I included this guy. You know, anybody can sit there and answer questions after you lose a game for 3 hours. It's got to be pretty glib.
I have the easiest job in the world, armchair quarterback. I think I can handle that.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
California kid that got to Nebraska. You and
Yeah.
I have talked about this on the show a lot, but what was your recruiting process like, and your first memory of coming in contact with Tom Osborne?
Coach, I mean, I'm different from other athletes, and I think that my decision was probably as easiest as it can get. You know, I had a great time being recruited, and I saw Nebraska, and we talked about this. I saw Nebraska play Miami in the 83-84 Orange Bowl, and I was in my car with my coach, and he asked me, what schools do you want to go to? And I said, well, I'm going to go to Nebraska. I saw them play the year before in the Sugar Bowl when they beat LSU. So he put together some game tape, and he sent them off to Nebraska, and I got this letter back from the recruiting coordinator at that time, which was Steve Peterson, and said that, hey, you're our number one choice as of right now if you just don't get injured or something like that. So I knew I wanted to go to Nebraska. So after I watched the 83-84 Orange Bowl, it was the easiest choice in the world. You know, they're winning all these games, they're scoring all these points, they got Turner Gill and all that kind of stuff. So now I'm glad you went for 2, but I would have liked you to just kick the field goal, just get it done. You could have done that. But
you and about 1.8 million other people.
Anyway, so my mind is made up, and Coach Osborne comes to school, comes to Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln High School in Southern California, San Diego, and our school was the ugliest school in the world. I only went there because my coach at Marcus Allen had gone there and broke all these records, and if I go, all these great things could happen. But we had bars around our campus, and we had bars on our windows. It was one of the ugliest schools ever. So I'm in class, and some girl comes screaming in and says, hey, Steve, there's this tall white guy, and he's with red hair and I was expecting to hear all these great promises and all these things, and Coach Osborne says, you know, Steve, I'm just going to promise you 2 things, that you will play quarterback and you get a chance to get an education. And I was sold. I said, good, I'm coming to Nebraska. So I verbally committed right there. But I said, I have one condition. I'm going to take my other 4 visits, but you cannot bring any other quarterbacks on a recruiting trip to Nebraska. I give you my word, I'm coming to Nebraska, but I'm going to go, and I'm a Southern California kid and want to see all these other schools. And Coach says yes. He said, I think I can do that. So we had this commitment. And then I hear that he invited some other quarterbacks up to Nebraska. So he violated that trust. So I called and say, you know what, I don't call, papers call me and stuff, and I said, you know what, I'm going to the University of Washington instead of Nebraska because Coach Osborne brought some parade All-American up on a recruiting trip, so I'm done, I'm not going there. But that was my first experience with Coach. And of course, that was all said and done. I signed and had a great time on my visits, and that was it.
I don't remember any parade All-American quarterbacks we ever brought in here. But Steve talks about his school, and you had metal detectors you had to go through. And George Darlington and I were there one time, I think it was when we were recruiting Steve, and somebody had come over the fence and shot a gun. And so George and I were thinking that Steve was really an important recruit, but we weren't sure we were going to stay around long enough to see him. But anyway, no, I remember Steve told us he was coming. But, you know, when people tell you they're coming and they're still visiting, it makes you very nervous, because when you're 18, sometimes you change your mind. And but he stayed with his commitment. And the thing about Steve was that we put an awful lot on his shoulders. You know, we had good teams, but we asked him to do the whole thing. And probably the game that I feel worst about during his career was we played Oklahoma out here, and we had them beat. And then they threw the ball to their tight end a couple times. And I think it was a game where we might have had a face mask penalty. It was one of those that didn't need to be called. It was 4th down, and they were inside their own 20-yard line. It was 4th and 3. And we broke through, and we made the tackle, and it was over. I mean, we had the ball at their 20, and we were ahead. And they called face mask, and nobody grabbed anything. It was just like the guy's hand barely grazed the face mask as he was making the tackle. One of those calls you didn't have to make, probably normally wouldn't make, but they did. Gave him the 1st down, and then they threw the ball to Keith Jackson. I remember he stiff-armed the defensive back, caught the ball in one hand over on the sideline. Then he caught another pass, and they went on and beat us. But Steve played well enough that day to win that game. And so he was a great quarterback, could do it all, great thrower and great runner. And so I always appreciated what he did here.
Played a lot of big games, a lot of big bowl games, Sugar Bowl, Fiesta.
Oh, yeah.
Which one do you remember the most from your career at Nebraska?
Oh God! I mean, it's funny because as I'm just about to turn 46, and I think of Coach Osborne every day, because Nebraska stands for integrity and all those good things. And he always talked about poise and consistency, you know, and those words just stay with me today. But I've had some great games. My first game at Nebraska, I started when I was a sophomore. We played against Florida State, and they were ranked in the top 5 or 6, you know, in the country. And we're going to open up with them at home, the first night game at Nebraska, and it's my first start. And you know, although I had played somewhat as a freshman, I mean, you really don't get any quality minutes, you know. So I was really like a true freshman starting that football game, and I was about as nervous as you can get, you know. And there's a lot of hype, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of media and all that kind of stuff. But I ended up having a great game, and we won. But that's not a game that stands out. You know, UCLA, my junior year, fantastic. You know, number 2 Nebraska or number 1 Nebraska versus number 2 UCLA and all that kind of stuff. We won that game, and it was a great game, but that's not a game that really sticks in my mind. There are really only 2 games that really haunt or I think about quite a bit. And the first game is the game of the 2 against Oklahoma, which I thought we did have the better team that particular year. And just a set of circumstances. You know, we had played Missouri a week or 2 before Oklahoma had played them, and I had a great game against Missouri. We beat them like 40 or 50 to something, and Oklahoma went down there and they struggled. They barely won, like 7-6 or something. And we had a bye week that following week, but we were feeling pretty good about ourselves. So we thought this was a year that we're going to take it to Oklahoma, and we ended up losing it. We go down the first drive, and we march down the field, and we score. We're up 7-0. Then after that, not too much happened. So that game stays in my mind, that we lost the game that's 32 against Oklahoma. And then the second game that sticks out is the Florida State game in the Fiesta Bowl my junior year. We could have swept Florida. It was like 2 minutes left in the game, and we run a simple ISO, and I tell Tyrese Knox, hey, just plow it in, don't jump. Because early in the game he had done a little lunge, like a little Herschel Walker deal, and almost lost it. And I said, hey, just put your head down and get the touchdown. We get out of here, and the game's won. And unfortunately, Tyrese fumbles, and then they go 114-something yards to win the football game. But the reason why that game, I mean, we clearly were the better team that day, and that touchdown would have been up by 11 with 2 minutes to go. So realistically, the game is pretty much over, and we would have won back-to-back bowl games, which at that time, you know, they would always say Coach Osborne can't win the big bowl games and all that kind of stuff. Although we had beaten LSU the year before, we could have had back-to-back bowl games against, you know, national lined up at the quarterback position at Nebraska and never felt like we were not the better team. If we just executed our game plan, we would win this football game. But I looked at my jersey when I was done. I knew something was up during the week because Coach Osborne put in these scramble plays, like drop back and run left, run right and run left for a dash. And I'm thinking like, okay, why are we doing this? I'm thinking like, okay, but I found out during the course of the game that they were really good. They were fast. Their defensive line was quick. Their linebackers had a lot of great team speed. And after that game, I told my wife, I said, I don't care what we would have done. We probably would have lost that game. I mean, they were really just a superior team. They were really good. So those are really the only 3 games that kind of stays in my craw, that kind of irritate me a little bit, But this guy right here, I always say, hey, do the best you can, leave it on the field. Be prepared and give it all and then see what happens. So I knew eventually he would get all his national championships. It was just a matter of time. It was just a matter of time before we got some breaks and we'd get it done. So when Nebraska won those 3 additional national championships, I kind of felt part of that because they learned and they grew from that, and it was just a matter of time.
I'm glad that you knew, Steve, because I didn't know. I wasn't sure it was ever going to happen. One thing, just an addendum to, he was talking about the Fiesta Bowl against Florida State, where we fumbled going in. We had the ball on the 3-yard line, and Tyrese fumbled at about the 2, and they got it at the 1. And then they went 99 yards on us. We got the ball back with maybe 45 seconds. And we threw the ball out to Morgan Gregory, and he went down to the 2-yard line with, 15 seconds left.
That irritates me.
And we're still going to win it. But we had our tight end lined up on the wrong side of the formation and made Morgan ineligible. And they called it back. And so that set of circumstances, the fumble going in and then having that play that would have led to, I think, a winning score, even with them scoring, was a really hard loss,
Coach, I never told you this, but I was at the line of scrimmage, and I looked to my cadence. I started my cadence to the right, and I went to the left to finish. You go 48, 49. I turned to the left, and I see Banderas lined up there. So I know he's on the wrong side. I see it, and I know he is. I'm just hoping, but I was so far in my cadence that I couldn't check. With the situation the way it was, I felt like I couldn't check. So I said a little prayer, and all this stuff goes through your mind at the line of scrimmage. So I said, like, God, I hope they just miss it. And I just hope they just miss it. And of course, it was 59 fake, 9 comeback. And Morgan, I throw it to Morgan, and Deion Sanders tries for the pick. He misses it, and Morgan runs all the way down to the 1 or 3 yard line. I'm like thinking, like, I just hope he missed it. And so I look to my right, I don't see a flag, and I see all the fans going crazy and everything, and everyone's running out in the field and stuff, and then I turn, I see this yellow flag like behind me. And so I know he saw it, and it just crushed me. But what do you do in that situation? So
you win some, you lose some.
You win some, you lose some.
Steve, appreciate you stopping up,
coming
out, and it's been great to obviously having you a part of the network as well. Look forward to having you out at the Capital One Bowl in Orlando.
It's been fun, and Coach, I just want to say thank you for everything. I mean, you were the ultimate coach. I mean, seriously. I mean, I learned so much from you. I carry that on in my professional life, in my personal life, and thank you for being the person you are. I've been fortunate to play for some really good coaches, some great coaches, and you're at the top of the list. So thank you for your service and what you've done.
Well, thanks, Steve. And if anybody needs a house, you can go see Steve. He'll sell you a house.
There you go.
He's always trying to help me out.
That's right. Well, before we let you go, we thank you for your time. You added an additional half hour tonight to the show. We really appreciate that. You're not going anywhere. And so these shows are always kind of, draw a fine line. You officially will no longer be athletic director, but will be in an athletic director emeritus role for the first 6 months at Nebraska. And, of course, we want to talk about, before you go, your teammates mentoring program. And that's something I know you're extremely passionate about and want to continue to see that grow and develop with things going on in the future as well.
Yeah, we're currently mentoring about 6,500 kids across Nebraska into Iowa, and would like to take it to 10,000, and so I'll spend some time doing that. But thanks, Steve. But you mentioned you're emeritus, and what that means that you no longer have any responsibility, and you don't get paid, and so it's a heck of a deal. It's a nice title, right? So I'll enjoy being emeritus and catch a few fish and recruit a few mentors.
Coach, thanks so much for stopping by and being here, and we really appreciate everything. I mean,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Jeff. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you.